So, you want to buy a Toyota Land Cruiser, huh? I get it. They are engineered for adventure and have been for decades. There's a reason a Land Cruiser is a common sight in hard to traverse spots all across the globe. You might use a Land Rover to go off-road, but the saying is that you use a Land Cruiser to also make it back home. But since the Land Cruiser's been around since 1958 here in the United States, there are many varieties from which to choose. So which generation of the Toyota Land Cruiser is the right one for you? Toyota, as a company operating in the United States, first opened its doors in 1957 and sales began in 1958. That first year, Toyota sold a singular 20 Series Land Cruiser. It would be wild to own that vehicle today, but you're not shopping for a 20 Series, so we're moving right on to the iconic 40 Series. The FJ40 Land Cruiser is very Jeep-like in its appearance. That's not a shock, really, as the Land Cruiser was initially created to be a military vehicle for the Japanese Army. Toyota made a prototype vehicle called the Jeep BJ. Then Willys, the original maker of the Jeep we know, said, hey, don't do that. So Toyota changed the name to the Land Cruiser. The Jeep connection lives on, though, as the FJ in the FJ40 name refers to F being the code for the Type F inline-six engine and J meaning Jeep. Production improvements of the 20 Series are what gave us the much better 40 Series truck. The FJ40 was produced from 1960 all the way through 1983 in the US, while Canada kept importing them until 1984. Power was initially provided by a 3.9-liter straight six, but that was upgraded to a stronger 4.2-liter unit in 1975. Toyota gave the FJ40 front disc brakes in 1976, while 1979 models changed from the rounded headlight bezel to a wider, more square look up front in that same spot. That same year, Toyota also started fitting the trucks with power steering. Gearbox-wise, the FJ40 started with a 3-speed manual but graduated to a 4-speed in 1974. There's actually a 5-speed version built in 1984, but we didn't get that one here in the States. Today, you can find an FJ40 at pretty much any price point. I've seen them sell for under 10 grand for pretty beat up yet still stout examples on the low end, while the high end is basically how much do you want to spend. Very nice clean examples can range from the low 30s up to the mid 40s, but then you have resto modded or restored versions with asking prices well into the 6-figure space. Alongside production of the 40, Toyota produced a more wagon-like variant called the FJ55. Its real nickname is the Iron Pig. It's essentially a 4-door FJ40 with a fixed roof, and it was produced from 67 through 1980. The powertrain options are the same, but the look and feel of the truck is certainly different. You don't see a ton of these around anymore, probably because most of them returned to the earth by way of converting to rust, but those still kicking look pretty sweet. The price range on these Iron Pigs is all over the place because it's either in terrible condition or flawless. The two I found for sale on Autotrader Classics, one is 33 grand and the other one wants $76,000. Moving on, we arrive at my favorite model of the Land Cruiser, the FJ60 and 62. This is the classically cool Land Cruiser of the 80s, and its model run here in the US actually spanned from 1980 to 1989. The style sort of morphs what Toyota loved about the 40 and 55 and reimagined it into something that was a fantastic hit here in the American market. Initially, the main powertrain was the 4.2-liter straight six, which signifies the truck as an FJ60 model. In 1988, you could spec the FJ62 with a more powerful 4-liter straight six, and this could be optioned with a carburetor or with fuel injection. The FJ60 trucks utilized a 4-speed manual gearbox, and the engine produced around 135 horsepower and 210 pound-feet of torque. FJ62 models with the carbed engine were fitted with a 5-speed manual gearbox, while fuel-injected cars got a 4-speed automatic, and both versions of the FJ62 delivered around 155 horse and 220 pound-feet of torque. Much like other versions of the Land Cruiser, the price range for the FJ60 and 62 is all over the map. They will likely all have pretty high miles, but if well maintained, these things will run forever. Prices for slightly rusty, rough-running examples can be found in the low $10,000 range. Solid examples will begin to climb from the low to mid $20,000 range on up, and ultra-clean ones are now fetching over 6 figures, or At least that's what people are asking. Now we move on to the modern era with the 80 series Land Cruiser. This is the one a lot of folks will picture when they hear the words Land Cruiser. This one is legendary for sure. It was built from 1990 through 97, and this is the first Land Cruiser to run a full-time four-wheel drive setup. It also gets a locking center differential as well. It's nicer inside compared to the 60 in that it's a bit more modern. Power-wise, however, it still gets things going with the 155 horsepower 4-liter, at least initially. Toyota would eventually give the 80 more power when it swapped to the 1FZ 4.5-liter inline-six. Now that truck is cooking along with a far more healthy 212 horsepower and 275 pound-feet of torque. Even better, you can spec these trucks with front and rear lockers to make for a triple lock setup. Basically, if you want to drive somewhere far off the beaten path, the triple locked 80 series is a mountain goat. Moving on, the 100 series Land Cruiser is where things start to truly turn up market. The truck retains its go-anywhere capability, but more demanding customers require more power and nicer interior appointments. The big news, at least here in the US market, is that our only version of the 100 series features V8 power under the hood. The 2UZ 4.7-liter V8 produces just over 240 horse and a bit over 300 pound-feet of torque. The truck is stiffer, stronger, and actually better on-road too because Toyota swapped in an independent front suspension. Even with that change, it's still excellent off-road. The 100 series ran from 98 through 2007 here in the US with a slight power bump in 2003 before a refresh in 06 increased power to 275 horsepower. The 2000 model year also marks the 50th anniversary of the Land Cruiser's initial creation, dating back to its military beginnings. I said these ones are fancier, and I mean it. Toyota would fit them with options like a push-button rear locker, rear seat DVD entertainment systems, heated front seats, adjustable suspension, and even an infrared night vision system. Still climbing, we arrive at the 200 series. This is the 6th gen Land Cruiser and saw a model run from 08 through 2021. Now we have serious power under the hood thanks to the 381 horsepower 5.7-liter V8 employed here. There are some magical goodies at work under the skin, and this includes the KDSS that keeps things cozy on-road and articulate off of it. You've got crawl control, easily engageable low range, and Toyota's multi-terrain select system. The 200 series is a proper off-road ready beast in fancy attire. And since it's still relatively fresh, only bowing out in 2021, the prices range from around $30K for examples with tons of miles, on up to the 70s and 80s for 200s with 40 to 50,000 miles on them. There are some heritage editions floating around still too, and those can inch closer to $100,000. Finally, we arrive at the newest member of the family, the 250 series Land Cruiser. Yes, this is essentially the Land Cruiser Prado version the rest of the world sees, and not the mighty 300 series sold in other markets. That said, there's a lot to like with this latest Land Cruiser. You've got 3 trims, each one of which features a 326 horsepower hybrid powertrain. All of the available electronic goodies are on display here, including a disconnecting front sway bar, rear and center lockers, and an off-road camera system. You also get wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, you can spec heated and ventilated seats, and there's even a head-up display available. You can find a 250 series barely used in the low $50,000 range. New, bearing any markups, these start in the mid $50,000 range, and prices can climb into the high 70s, with some folks trying to get high 80s on the secondary market, which seems a little foolish. Now, for those of you saying it, yes, we didn't cover any of the Lexus variations of some of these models. And also, we didn't cover the myriad other iterations of the Land Cruiser family that exist all over the globe. It's one heck of an automotive family tree to explore, though, if you set aside some time to dig through all of it. So, back to the Land Cruiser we get and got here in the States. If you were shopping for one, which one would you choose? I know my answer, and I still hope to own a 60 or 62 someday.